Hi, Copic and the Craft Room friends. Michelle Houghton here. I am bringing to you, if you're not familiar with her, this is Ann Corbiere. And I know I'm not pronouncing that right, and I probably need to go back and listen to one of her Facebook live videos and pronounce her last name or her maiden name correctly. It's Ann Corbiere-Scott, and she does kind of live Facebook fun coloring sessions every Saturday. And what I love is she's done kind of this little tour through art history. She's picking out an artist every Saturday, and they do all sorts of different kind of mixed media fun. And she plays with Copics and watercolor and color pencil and really encourages people just to play. And I love that. Anyway, she has come up with a new little inspiration, and that is has opened a digital store. And what's kind of special about hers, making her a little more unique, these are all her designs, and she does them in honor of friends. This is in honor of Debbie, so this particular set is. But all of them are ready to go just like this. So they literally are prepared on an 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper. All you have to do is hit print and put your favorite kind of paper through your printer, and you get these automatic little pieces. So there's almost always an A2 card front, kind of that standard 4.25 by 5.5, that'll fit inside that. She's added the new slimline size. So we've got one strip that is perfect for that. And then she teaches word art, what I would call word art, in that kind of your freehand, really fun ideas with words. So not super precise. It's more about the fact that it's hand done, but she teaches really fun, fabulous classes on that. And then always a separate piece that you can do a little fussy cutting on and add to an image, or you could trim a little wider. Anyways, it's all on this 8.5 by 11 sheet. All you have to do is hit print, and you have these card fronts ready to go. How fabulous is that? And she has a whole series of them, and she's been dutifully kind of adding one a month, which I love. It's just enough. The fact that it's digital, it's a little less expensive. And again, it's already pre-formatted for you. If you're a person who's like, I don't do digital because I don't understand it, this is your cup of tea. This is literally that. Pull it up, hit print, you're good to go. All right. So anyways, I thought I wanted to share these with you. And this is just one of them. This is one that she actually was part of opening her store. So it's one of the originals, but she has added several. And so it's worth taking a look at. And it's fun because, again, she just encourages people to play with color and to enjoy themselves. So I'm going to do a little Copic coloring. I'll go ahead and do this on the one that I could fussy cut out if I want to, and add to a card. All right. So I'm going to enlarge this a little, get us a little closer in. That's a lot closer in, but if I can hold it there for you, we might get a pretty good view of that. And I am needing some sunshine in my life. So I'm going to do a set of yellows today. And I really love, this is going to lean from yellow into kind of an orange. This is colors I would often use for sunflower. And I'm going to keep it really simple today. I'm going to do my light to dark coloring, and then so I'll work from my lightest color through my darkest and then hit reverse and work back. So I'm going to start with my lightest, which is the Y32. Now I could go ahead and base the entire flower in this if I want to, but I am going to keep it to 2 or 3 petals. Usually that's about the amount that I feel like I can keep the ink moving fairly efficiently. Now this is my base color. So what I mean by that is the color I'm going to give that kind of primer coat or base coat to my petals. I'd like it all kind of damp, but if I am not totally smooth yet, I'm okay with that. I know I have more layers coming back through. Now, the next question for a lot of people, shifting onto Y35, by the way, is then what paper am I running through my printer? So one of the papers that I like for Copic coloring that has worked okay for me is Hammermill. So I found a Hammermill, a friend suggested this to me, that is 60 pound. So it's a lighter weight Hammermill. It really is pretty lightweight, and it runs through my printer beautifully, which I love. And I feel like I have pretty good luck with blends and getting my colorless blender to respond on it. And the inks look pretty bright and vibrant, so I'm pretty pleased with it. So I am using a Hammermill, and it's a 60 pound version of a favorite paper. Now with this Y35, I am looking at what Ann has kind of given me. She's done some little pointillism dots to show me where she feels like those petals are probably getting a little bit darker, maybe have a little vein work, have a little dip in or out. So I am using that information. I also know that as the petals sink into the center of the flower, they're probably going to get a little darker. And obviously I've gone beyond that as well. I'm going to come in with my Y38 and I'll push a little further. Not as much with this color, it's pretty slight. And then I'm going to go in between and push this petal back. And maybe we'll add another color for that guy and really push that back. Now if I do, I might use a little blue violet. Oh, and the lawnmower is coming around today. Excellent. I'm going to jump back all the way to my lightest color, and I'm going to go back through the center of the petal. Sorry. Dang it, he comes by like every day. Soften the edges of that mid-tone and that darker area on the petal. I don't need it like super smooth. This is a flower. It has little vein work and ins and outs, but I like the look of that. What I would like to do though is I'd like to push, yeah. So this is a BV31. I would a lot of times work with BV20, but I'm going to try this BV31 and see if this might be just enough. I don't know if it's going to... I want to just desaturate that color just a little bit. And I could have done this first, maybe on those next petals. I just want to add it to that back petal so it pushes it behind. Actually, yeah, it's going to be perfect. There we go. That does what I want it to. Okay, so there's not, these guys really sit mostly side by side the way they're sitting. So the one place I'm going to add this is I am going to come into this petal that is behind this guy. Add a little bit down in there. Yep, I think that'll work. And then I'll go ahead and do the other half of the flower. A lot of times when I do flowers, I will do them in thirds, kind of thinking in a pie shape, and cut out a third of the pie and work on it at a time. That's about the right amount for me to tackle at once if it's a complicated flower. So it's got lots of little details going on. In Copic College last year, we tackled a peony from Power Poppy that had a ton of all these little beautiful petals. And so we did them kind of at a third at a time. This one really feels like half and half is really manageable. This is a beautiful, simple flower. Thank you, Anne. And Anne is another artist that I have not had the honor and pleasure of meeting in person, but I watched several of her Saturday Facebook Lives, and she kind of teases herself about her chitter chatter. She does what I'm doing now of kind of talking while she colors and talking about her decision-making process and what she's doing. I'm going to switch up to Y35. And to me, the beauty of that is I feel like I'm in the room with her, that if I sit down and do my art at the same time, because she encourages you to do it. She does all of this live, and if you go back and watch it, it's real time. And you can always go back and watch. So if you're interested in seeing some of her little tutorials, I would encourage you to do that. They're super, super fun and educational too. If you're looking for an art project to do with your students at homeschooling and being stuck at home, it would be an amazing resource for that. So she teases herself about her chitter chatter, how she kind of gets off and talking you through what she's doing. And I love it because I feel like I'm in her space. I feel like I'm in her studio with her, and it's just so fun because we spend so much time alone right now. It feels so good to have someone kind of sitting beside me. Even though she's not there physically in person, it feels like I have this wonderful voice kind of chitter-chattering beside me, and that feels really good. So I applaud her for continuing to do that. I think she started it because she wasn't getting to teach live, which she missed desperately. I truly know how she feels. And so she was really trying to get back to teaching, and this was a way to do that. And I think she's really gathered a wonderful group of women who tune in. And because it's a Facebook, we can't chat with each other. But people add comments here and there and share what they're working on. And then at the end, you can post what you completed when you complete it. And it's fun to see everybody's artwork too. She does that on a private Facebook group, so you can choose to share or not. But super fun. And just, I think she's teaching people a lot about art in general, looking at some of the greats from the past, which is amazing. I just applaud her for that. I just think what she's doing is so amazing and reaching so many people. So well done, Anne. Keep it going. All right, so I'm coming back in on my second half of my flower here. And I am adding those touches of my Y38. So again, just shrinking down how much I'm using. And you can see the difference between the top half and the bottom half now. It's not huge. I smoothed it just a hair so that you can't see all the brush strokes so much, but you can still see that color shift. It's not completely smooth, and I like that painterly look. But in particular on something like a flower that has some in and out to it, some vein work, some texture, those petals are not glass smooth. So I like having a little bit. And the second layer, because I jumped all the way back to Y32, the second layer also warms that flower up one more notch. It gets a little bit darker because we've put that second layer of ink on it. But you'll notice this is a pretty quick, when we get finished, you'll notice this was a pretty quick flower to color, which it's nice to have some of those. It's nice to have some of those in your library that go a little faster. All right, let's see. I'm thinking I'd like to maybe do browns So this is an E53. I'm going to get it nice and wet. And then I'm going to come in with a big jump. This is an E57. And I'm kind of coming around the edge. That may or may not be dark enough. Okay, not dark enough. This is an E59. Yeah, that's more where I wanted it. I come back in and hit those big guys a second time. I'm not trying to do a third layer. I'm just going right over the top of what I did with the E57. I just want it a little darker. So I'll skip the E57, do an E59 instead. And then I'm going to jump to my, back to my E53. And on the bigger ones, I'm going to circle or just kind of dab some color right in on that little center spot. Again, all that's going to do is it's going to soften the edge of that E59, kind of help it feather a little bit more. It did that already a little bit, so it needs really just some touches of color. Perfect. I love it. Love. And then we have these beautiful leaves. I am a fan of YGs or kind of more desaturated greens when I don't use my YGs. But I'm going to use kind of a standard set for me. So nothing real fancy here. I'm going to use a YG 6.3 and a YG 6.7. This is a pretty common set for me to use when doing foliage. So I'm going to bring those in. Oh, this marker desperately needs a new nib. I am going to be replacing a bunch of my brush nibs. I don't know if you can see this. That tip is kind of bent over, and it's super soft. I have used these markers now for, I was trying to figure this out the other day. It's over 10 years. I want to say probably closer to 13, 14 years that some of my markers have been in my set and been well loved. And most of them have their original nibs. The ones that I use frequently have been refilled many times because they do get a lot of love from me. But let's see. That's what I'm wondering. Do that, maybe a little green there. Yeah, so we may or may not see it there, but I think we'd see it there. But several of the brush nibs are finally reaching the point where they're kind of giving up the ghost. They're kind of, oh, we're done. We've worked our hearts out and we need to be replaced. So I am going to give them a break and I am going to freshen them up. So I'm going to keep the leaves really simple. This is not a realistic leaf. I am keeping it very simple. I'm going to go from that core out a little bit with my YG 6.7 and from underneath the petals as well, because we know that will be darker. The other way to do leaves is to leave the vein work light. And I have done that before, and I could, just even with my YG 6.7, kind of work around. I might do that. I could go back and push some of that out. Kind of changing my mind midstream now. So I'm going to pull that YG 6.3, smooth that out a little, not all the way, but there we go. I think what I want to do, I actually like the look of that being a little bit lighter. So I'm going to grab, let's try this first. I've got a YG61. It might be just enough. I'm going to put that into that vein. Because this color has a little more of the alcohol solution in it, it's actually going to push at that ink a little bit. So it's going to lighten up that area. It's going to push the ink down through the paper. I'll show you that part here in just a second. And out, away from that area I'm getting wet. So it's just lightening it up just a hint. Again, instead of using the colorless blender, a lot of times if you can use a lighter version of that color, you're going to be more pleased with that effect. So the ink pushed out away from where I was coloring, but it also pushed down and back. So there's quite a bit of ink right in that section sitting on the back of that paper. A little harder to see on this. A lot of this is bleeding through because that flower is so thin. Or the paper is so thin. So I am going to use a little bit of this BV31 and I'm going to go into these little white areas in between. Just come out. A little bit. If you are trying to fade to white, couple little hints here. Make sure you're getting over on the side of your brush. I see a lot of people that are working up on the nib, up on the tip, and what happens is you end up with these little tiny streaks or tiny fine lines, and it is hard to get those lines to disappear. So if you can lay that marker on its side, back your fingers up. So if you're really tight against this nib, it's hard to do. But if you back your fingers up, you can lay that marker down, get a nice broad flick stroke, then it's going to be easier to come in with that colorless blender and get that nice transition from your color into just kind of fading gradually into white. All right, so this little guy is kind of ready. I could trim it down and either trim it all the way down and fussy cut him out. If I did that, I might even lose these in between pieces. Or I could trim this in a nice, neat rectangle, kind of right in between those other shapes, and put this little one on a card. Thank you, as always, for joining me this week on Copic in the Craft Room on YouTube. If you have not had a chance recently, stop by my blog. There's going to be some updates here in the next few weeks and in particular in the next month. So if you have not registered for the newsletter, do that at my blog, scrapweaver.com. Check out Ann Corbiere-Scott Designs.com and her new digital images. Thank you, everybody. Hope everyone has a wonderful, happy, colorful week. See you next time.